Britain has been greenlighting a number of Bitcoin exchange-traded products on the Aquis exchange. Switzerland-based investment product provider 21 Shares has a listing that is imminent, and earlier this month, ETC Group launched their own offering. And joining us now with more is ETC Group CEO Bradley Duke. Welcome, Bradley.
Thank you very much.
All right, Bradley, so we're starting to see Bitcoin ETPs and ETFs spring up like mushrooms, it seems. ETC has further listings in Germany and Switzerland. WisdomTree, VanEck, 21 Shares have all received approval to list ETPs on the Euronext stock exchanges in Paris and Amsterdam. And Norway's Arcane Crypto just announcing they'll list an ETP with Valor later this year. But the Bitcoin market has nosedived about 40% from its all-time highs of about 64,000 earlier this year. Can demand keep up with the supply being created of these ETPs?
Well, I mean, look, that's an interesting question, and famously the supply of Bitcoin is fixed, as we know, at 21 million total coins, and so the only part of the supply demand equation that's where there's any activity is on the demand side, and products like BTC, our Bitcoin ETP enables the institutional investor to invest directly in Bitcoin. Whenever there is a purchase of an ETP like ours, which is 100% backed by Bitcoin, there has to be a purchase of Bitcoin. So that does these are products that are enabling institutional demand into the space where they may be otherwise not permitted to purchase an unregulated asset. Well, reflecting on the Fed's latest announcement, if inflation is a hedge against Bitcoin, which may cause a lot of institutions to invest in your ETPs, what are your thoughts on if the Fed does hike rates next year, or earlier than expected? Right. Well, there's the expectation, pretty much across the board, that given, this is not just in the US, but in developed markets around the world, all major currencies, there is a threat to all major currencies because of the increase in money supply that has been used to fund the stimulus packages related to the coronavirus pandemic, and jump-starting business around the world as a result. And we've seen expansion of the money supply at levels that we haven't seen before. So there is a real threat of inflation rising, and increasingly institutional investors sees Bitcoin as a hedge, as a safe haven, which is quite a turnaround from the way the world looked at Bitcoin about 2 years ago, or even a year and a half ago, where it was seen as as a bit of a challenging, a difficult investment, and now it's seen as a safe haven. It's a real turnaround.
You mentioned that institutional investors are investing in ETPs rather than directly with Bitcoin itself, and that may be for some regulatory reasons. But I wonder, with El Salvador and a lot of Latin American countries talking about Bitcoin as legal tender, I wonder if that changes the perception of Bitcoin at all.
Well, I think with each country that does accept, or any countries or even companies that break cover and say that they're going to be investing in Bitcoin directly, it does help the story, the global story of Bitcoin. As far as institutions go, they are often quite limited by their own rules. The asset managers are often prevented by their own investment committee rules from investing in unregulated products. So ETC Group with BTC has put a regulatory wrapper around Bitcoin, so it's traded on a major exchange, centrally cleared, and also fully fungible with Bitcoin underneath. So it's as close to investing directly in Bitcoin as is possible. But at the same time, it is a regulated asset on a regulated exchange.
What do European regulators think about cryptocurrencies? Is it political at all? Because in the United States, there is a lot more caution and skepticism around Bitcoin as a speculative investment, its volatility, its high risk characteristics. Is it regarded differently in Europe?
Well, I think that depends on where you are in Europe. The European Union is 27 countries, and they each have their own regulator. And even though there's a lot of effort to try and unify the regulation across the European Union, each regulator has its own view, and some are much more cautious about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency in general. We've seen that BaFin, which is the German regulator, has been more pragmatic and more forward-looking with regards to products that are around cryptocurrency, and so is the Swiss regulator. And then famously, the FCA, which is the UK regulator, took a much more bearish view and actually banned ETPs for retail investors in the United Kingdom.